I never in my life imagined that a job advertisement, as mundane as it seemed, would be the portal to my personal hell. Logistics assistant, $30 per hour, experience not necessary. It seemed too good to be true. And it was. I was desperate. Overdue rent, an empty refrigerator, the bank calling non-stop. $30 an hour was a fortune, the lifeline I needed. Without a second thought, I sent my resume, attaching the most polished version of my history of temporary and dead-end jobs. The interview was an omen, but I was blinded by need. No questions about my experience, my technical skills, or my qualifications. The woman who interviewed me, in an impeccable grey suit, had eyes of such a pale blue they seemed lifeless, almost like glass. She didn't smile, but her voice was strangely soft as she spoke about discretion, confidentiality, and resilience under pressure. She watched me with an intensity that seemed to strip my soul bare, searching for something I couldn't identify. In the end, without even checking references or a basic proficiency test, she offered me the job. Immediate start, salary paid in advance. My bank account thanked me for the deposit that arrived even before the first day, but something in my stomach, something churned, an icy premonition, a whisper that what was too easy was, in fact, a price too high. But hunger, the fear of the streets, spoke louder. The office was a labyrinth of sterile corridors and identical doors, all sealed and without identification. Everything in shades of grey and white, a palette that sucked out any trace of human warmth. Silent, inhumanly silent. The air conditioning blew a constant cold breeze, and the only audible sound was the almost imperceptible hum of the fluorescent lights on the ceiling. My colleagues, if I could call them that, were like ghosts in life. They worked in cubicles, eyes fixed on screens, without interacting. No conversation, no muffled laughter, not even the sound of coffee being made. I felt like an aberration for breathing so loudly, for existing in a place that seemed to negate existence itself. My tasks were confusing, repetitive, and seemingly without real purpose. Endless listings of alphanumeric codes, nonsensical spreadsheets with data that seemed random, organizing physical files I couldn't read, sealed in folders with cryptic labels. I questioned it just once, in a low voice, about the purpose of it all, about the reason for so much secrecy. My supervisor, a bald man with a deep scar on his neck that looked almost like a bad seam, just looked at me with an intensity that froze my bones. "Your job is to do, not to ask," he said, his voice almost a whisper but heavy as lead, echoing in the suffocating quiet of the room. The message was clear, undeniable. Don't ask, never. The feeling of being watched started on the second day, or maybe it was there from the start, just intensifying. A constant, slight tingling on the back of my neck, the sensation that invisible eyes were following me, scrutinizing my movements, my expressions, even when I was alone in the break room, which, curiously, had no windows or any blind spots. I checked my reflection in the turned-off screens, in the mirrored walls of the corridors, hoping to catch something, a lens, a shadow, but always nothing. Just my own pale, tired face staring back at me, with growing paranoia etched in every line. Was it just the stress of a new, demanding job, coupled with my own anxiety? I tried to convince myself it was, but my body said otherwise. But then came the tests. Small, subtle, almost imperceptible. A file accidentally left on my desk containing documents with maximum confidentiality headers and technical terms I didn't understand, but which evoked images of complex, secret operations. The filing cabinet door unlocked by forgetfulness, revealing stacks of dossiers marked with unknown names and locations. In each situation, I followed the rules to the letter. I handed over the document without browsing, locked the cabinet, and reported the oversight in a procedural manner. I refused to look, to read, to snoop. My survival instinct screamed that curiosity was a luxury I couldn't afford there, a fatal mistake in such a controlled environment. Once, my supervisor asked me to stay late to reorganize some files in a more remote wing of the building. He left me alone, said he would be back in an hour, but time stretched into a frightening eternity. The pile of boxes was immense, but the loneliness and the oppressive silence left me on edge, every fiber of my being on alert. Suddenly, I heard a sound, a light, rhythmic clicking like a keyboard being typed on rapidly, coming from the cubicle next to me, which I knew was empty. I froze, the air trapped in my lungs. The room was in semi-darkness, except for the weak light from my desk. The sound stopped abruptly. I waited, my heart beating a frantic, painful rhythm in my chest, before forcing my muscles to continue working, acting as if nothing had happened. It was just the old building settling, or my mind playing tricks on me. I wanted to believe it was. The following week, a colleague's night shift was restructured, a strange euphemism. He never showed up again. No one commented, no one asked. It was as if he had never existed, erased from the collective memory of that place. His cubicle, once full of post-it notes with reminders and a funny coffee mug, was now clean, empty, frighteningly immaculate. That was an electric shock to my soul, a clear, icy message. If you fail, you disappear, and no one cares. Fear became my constant companion, a heavy shadow that followed me home and invaded my dreams. Every step I took was calculated, every movement planned to the millimeter. Every word I uttered, if I spoke at all, was thought over 1,000 times before being articulated, and most of them were just yes, sir, or understood. I became a robot, following orders, avoiding eye contact, keeping my head down, hiding any emotion. I was surviving, but at what cost? My soul was draining away, replaced by constant vigilance and blind obedience. I felt like a rat in a maze, always under the cold aim of an invisible predator, waiting for the right moment to devour me. One day, while waiting for my coffee from the vending machine, a rare luxury in that lifeless place, I heard low voices coming from a room I had never seen open. A crack, perhaps half a centimeter wide, allowed a faint yellowish light to escape, along with fragments of a conversation. I approached, not out of curiosity now, but from an uncontrollable impulse to understand where I had ended up, to put a name to my agony. The voice was my supervisor's, and another I didn't recognize, deep, authoritative, almost imperious. "He is promising," said my supervisor, a tone of disguised approval. "Observant, but obedient. Doesn't ask inconvenient questions. Showed good judgment in the incidents." "Good," replied the other voice, dry and sharp as a blade. "The curious ones don't last, and the negligent ones are even worse. This is a delicate operation, Mr. Silver. Loyalty is everything, and discretion is our survival." They laughed, a dry, joyless laugh that reverberated in my chest. I stepped back, my blood running cold, my stomach twisting. A delicate operation, loyalty, discretion, incidents. It wasn't logistics, it was control. It wasn't a job, it was a test, a life or death test. I was just a piece, a pawn in a game I didn't understand, but from which I could no longer escape. I had passed the tests of discretion and obedience, but my prize was prison. I was trapped. The door opened suddenly, creaking slightly, and my supervisor came out, his face impassive, the icy blue eyes of the interviewer seeming to reflect in his. He looked at me for a second, his assessing eyes scanning me, and then moved on, as if I weren't there, a mere detail in the sterile landscape. That night, I went home, but I couldn't sleep. With every shadow cast on the wall, with every subtle noise of the night, I saw the invisible eyes watching me, evaluating me. I had the money, yes, my bank account was finally stable, but I had traded my freedom for it, my peace, my sanity. I was part of something big and dark, and the only way to survive was to keep playing the game, to keep proving my loyalty. I was an asset now, and assets are not allowed to leave. There is no resignation here, no dismissal. Every day, every minute I wonder, when will the next test come? And if one day I fail, even by a momentary lapse of attention? The truth is that with every dollar that enters my account, a part of me dies. I no longer work for money. I work to not disappear, to not become the next empty cubicle, the next restructured person who fades into thin air without a trace. My lifeline became my grave, and I am the gravedigger, digging deeper with every paycheck. If you survived this story, if you feel the chill I feel, subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss our next dive into the abyss. And comment below. If you were in my place, what would you do to try to escape, to break these invisible chains? Or would you accept your fate, becoming just another obedient shadow?